All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Foxborough Faithful podcast presented by Guy Boston Sports. I am your host, Anastasios Kilimos. They call me the Greek Freak. I am joined today by my co-host, Jake Turano. Jake, can I be the first to welcome you to Guy Boston Sports, to welcome you to the team, and welcome you to the show, the new show?
Thank you, man. I'm very excited to be a part of it. I'm happy that we got it going. It's gonna be it's gonna be a fun season.
Yeah, I'm happy we didn't do this last year, because I feel like had we done this last season, it would have been a kind of a miserable experience every week coming on talking about this offense, talking about the struggles. So I'm happy we're doing it this year and not last year. If you guys don't know us, we're from Guy Boston Sports. We both are writers for the website, but we also do some podcasting. This is our new show, the Foxborough Faithful podcast. We'll be with you all Patriots football season, recapping games, breaking down takes. All of it will be here. This will also be the team for Patriots post-game live this season on GuyBostonSports.com, on our YouTube channel, on Twitter. So make sure, if you're not already subscribed, if you don't follow us already, make sure you do that. Follow us, subscribe on Twitter, on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. We'll be producing Patriots content all season long. If you don't know me, I've been with Guy Boston Sports for about 2-3 years. I've done a couple other shows here on the network. I am a diehard Patriots fan of all the Boston sports. New England Patriots football is by far my favorite. It's the one that gets me up in the morning. It's the one that if we lose, I'm down bad for a week. It's the one if we win, I'm celebrating like crazy for a week. It's the only one of the Boston sports teams that does that for me, where my entire week, my mood for the week is determined by Patriots football, which it's not a healthy thing, but that's life as a Patriots football fan. Jake is also a diehard Patriots football fan. Jake, why don't you tell the people a little bit by yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I eat, sleep, breathe Patriot football. Like you said, my mood revolves on this team. It's definitely not healthy. I have more gray hair at the age of 27 than any man on the face of the earth, just because of this team. I do go to every home game. I got lucky enough that my dad got season tickets back when they sucked. Way before Brady, way before Bledsoe. He's had them since like the early 90s. So content there, I'll be pumping it out as much as I can. Post-game live, I'll be either in the parking lot on my way home, doing as much as I can. I just started with Guy Boston Sports probably about 2 months ago, I would say. And it's been a hell of a ride. Very, very excited.
It really is clinically insane, the fact that like a children's game essentially, and I hate when people say that, but the truth is it's a children's game makes us depressed. And like, it's funny. So my girlfriend this past fall, quick story, this past fall was our first fall together. And so during football season, I warned her, listen, Patriots games, they're my life. And you may like me after game, you may not, depending on what happens. And she didn't believe me. And it was that Patriots-Bills game, that regular season finale. I mean, I legit was face down in a pillow for like 2 hours after the game. And she honestly was like, are you all right? Like, she didn't believe me that like when we lose, especially like a loss like that, I'm not going to an apple picking thing. I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting home with my face in a pillow, just going through the emotions. So that's what being a Patriot fan is all about. You know, for every Super Bowl celebration with Brady, you've got, Buffalo kicking our ass in a regular season finale or a playoff game. So it's the up and downs of being a Patriot fan. But I'm very excited for me and Jake to have this show to talk to you guys all season long. Like I said, make sure you're subscribed. And let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. So we are only a couple weeks away from Patriots football officially starting. But for now, we have some preseason stuff. Last night, Green Bay Packers, second preseason game. We should start off by saying prayers out to Isaiah Bolden, who obviously had a little bit of a scary injury towards the end of the game. Right call by both coaches calling it. I think playing the rest of that game would have been pointless. It would have been almost inappropriate, if that's the right word to use, especially a preseason game.
Yeah.
What was your reaction, Jake, when you saw that injury happen live?
I mean, to be honest with you, I was a little bit stunned. I know it wasn't the same injury as DeMar Hamlin, not even relatively close, but like just seeing it, I was like, what's going on? And then seeing him get carted off the field too with his eyes closed, I was like, damn. I go, this is pretty serious. Like you said, I'm happy they did call the game. because it's a preseason game. It's very meaningless. They also canceled joint practice too with the Titans upcoming week, which I think was also the right move. But I was very happy to see that he went home with the team today, left the hospital, traveled back with the team. So definitely a huge positive sign.
Yeah, I think especially after last season, not only obviously DeMar Hamlin immediately comes to mind, but you also had like the Tua Tagovailoa situation where he kind of, he gets hit, he has a head injury and his body kind of locks up. And we had some scary moments last season. So obviously seeing this already this year, I think we have a different way of reacting to this thing now, especially post DeMar Hamlin. I think when we see injuries like this, we now are almost thinking the worst. So it was good that this was a kind of a quick turnaround. Like today, it was he's out of the hospital, he's doing all right. This wasn't like a drawn out thing, and it wasn't like an extended stay, which is good. He seems to be doing all right. But definitely right move by the team, I think, to cancel practice and stuff. It's tough. I mean, people don't really understand. Like it really is a family. Like NFL football players, like for 6 or 7 months, you are with these people more than your family. And so when something like that happens, I know Isaiah Bolden's, he's a rookie, he's a newer guy on the team. But he's a part of that Patriot family, and I know it was a scary reaction for all those guys to see that. But as far as the game goes, Patriots, because the game was suspended, game ends in a 21-17 victory. Of course, it's preseason, so it doesn't really matter. Jake, what are your initial takeaways from the game?
So I was happy to see Mac played. I think he played 3 series. I think he played the entirety of the first quarter too. To me, he didn't look bad. He took some nasty hits because of the O-line. That's the biggest question mark going into the year. How can they protect Mac? I think Mac did pretty fine. I think he was 6 for 9 with like 52 yards, led the team to a scoring touchdown. Zappe looked really well as well. I think he was 10 for 22 with like 117 yards. I think my biggest takeaway was Kayshon Boutte. I think this was a Kayshon Boutte that we saw at LSU, who was at one point the top wide receiver in all of college football. He showed it with his speed. I personally think he's going to make the team. I just think he can bring so much to this offense. Another thing that stood out to me was Malik Cunningham didn't get a single snap at quarterback. I think that was also due to the fact that the game got suspended. I think if they would have played the entire fourth quarter, I think he would have got some snaps towards the very end. But he got a lot of snaps at wide receiver. He didn't get a target or a catch, but I think that was something that stood out to me the most was Cunningham, as how many snaps he got at wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think had the game gone the full time, we would have seen him at quarterback. And I think with Malik Cunningham, I think that's kind of going to be his role all season. I think you're going to see him as he'll be listed as like a backup quarterback, but I think they're just going to use him everywhere. And I think that's why he's a lock to make the roster. Beyond the fact that I think he has potential as a quarterback, I think that he's kind of a Belichick kind of guy. He plays wide receiver. You can use him in special teams. He can play quarterback. He kind of, I don't want to say Julian Edelman-esque, but kind of Julian Edelman-esque in the sense that like you can use him in a couple different things. A college quarterback, elite athleticism.
I think most Taysom Hill a lot. Like that.
Yeah, and I think most importantly too with him, and it's something that Bill really looks for. I think is how vital he'll be in practice. I don't think people realize that when you play a quarterback like a Lamar Jackson or you play a quarterback like a Justin Fields, Bailey Zappi cannot mimic that. It's really hard to find quarterbacks who can mimic those guys' actions. Having a guy like Malik Cunningham is very important because when you play the Lamar Jacksons and the Josh Allens and these quarterbacks who can run on you, which is something that New England has really struggled with in past years, having Malik Cunningham will better prepare this defense for those matchups. So I think Malik Cunningham is a lock to make the roster. I did want to see some more snaps at quarterback because he did impress me in that first preseason game, so it's a little disappointing not to see him throw at all. But I think he's pretty safe to be on the roster. I think that's why it wasn't really stressed to get him in there quicker. I think they know he's going to be on this roster regardless if he takes snaps at quarterback or not. I'm glad you brought up the Kayshon Boutte situation because it's really interesting. I don't know. This wide receiver battle is going to come down to the wire, and I don't think New England's going to take 6 wide receivers. I think they're only going to take 5. And if that's the case, New England's going to have to make a very difficult decision between Kayshon Boutte and Tyquan Thornton. And so we talked about it a little bit pre-show. I don't really see Tyquan Thornton making this team, which is crazy to say because obviously he was a second-round pick last year. They had a lot of high hopes for him, but he struggled in training camp. He was injured, so he didn't play yesterday. But I really don't see keeping him on this team, not with how good Demario Douglas has been, and not with the upside that Kayshon Boutte brings. Do you think Tyquan Thornton gets cut, or do you think they carry 6 wide receivers?
I think they carry 6 wide receivers. It's tough because I think last year a lot of the offensive players didn't really get unlocked. Like Thornton. I mean, you had a lot of these players who didn't show the potential because I believe they're being held back by Patricia. If Thornton can stay healthy, I've been saying it, I think he can be a very good wide receiver for this team. It's a big if he can stay healthy. A gust of wind can take him out because just how skinny he is. I do think they'll keep 6 wide receivers. I just think they're very thin at that position. It is going to be tough to keep 6, but either way, if they keep Boutte, if they had to do something with Thornton, it wouldn't really surprise me. I just think they want to see something out of Thornton this year. I think this is with a lot of players on this offensive staff. I think it's a lot of make or break years, and it's kind of crazy to say it because he's in his second year with the team. But I think Thornton needs to have a huge year. But I do think they keep 6 wide receivers.
If you had to choose, if it came down to, if Belichick came out and said, hey, we're only keeping 5, and obviously we know Juju, Parker, Bourne, and Demario Douglas, who's been unbelievable in both camp and preseason. They've kind of kept him under lock and key in preseason, though, which obviously I think means that they plan to keep him and use him a lot in the regular season. If you have to choose between Kayshon Boutte and Tyquan Thornton, who are you picking and why?
That's tough.
Because personally for me, I would go with Kayshon Boutte, and I will say off the bat, I am not a Tyquan Thornton guy. I was not a fan of the pick when they made it. I never bought stock in that draft pick. I don't want to say he's like the second coming of N'Keal Harry, but it reminds me a lot of that situation where he had a solid college career at Baylor, wasn't special, but he was good enough to be. I think he was where he was drafted by New England was fair. But when you already look at some of the receivers that were drafted immediately after him, I mean, George Pickens, I think he's going to be a star on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he goes 2 picks later. You know, the Colts take Alec Pierce 3 picks later. I'm not saying he's going to be a star, but he looked solid with the Colts. I think he'll take a step forward. And then, you know, after that, you've also got guys like Velus Jones with the Chicago Bears. I mean, some solid receivers were taken after him, and it just kind of feels like we took the wrong guy again. I know the potential is there. The speed is there. He has the athletic tools to be successful, but the injuries are already – last year, obviously, he was hurt to start the year. This year now he's hurt to start the year again. I don't really want to hold his rookie season against him because obviously with Matt Patricia, everybody had a down year. But I'm just not high on him versus with Kayshon Boutte. I mean, there was a graphic. I just saw it. Was it yesterday? When you compare, I think he was like – the graphic was, I'm not quoting directly because I can't remember, but it was something along the lines of like fastest LSU wide receivers to reach 100 catches.
Yes.
And it was like Kayshon Boutte, Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham, and Jamar Chase. Like that's elite company to be in. And people forget early in his LSU career, he was being talked about as one of the next big star wide receivers. Of course, injuries and some of his behavior things kind of affected that, but he had the makings of what looked like the next of these LSU stars. And so for me personally, I just feel like he has a much higher ceiling. That's why I would rather go with Boutte because there is more unknown and untapped. Whereas with Thornton, I know there's still more untapped. I just feel like it's his ceiling, I feel like is just lower.
I do agree with you. I mean, a part of me wants to pick Thornton because he has that NFL experience, but I mean it's only been a year. And he's been hurt for plenty of games. I like Boutte a lot. I love the draft pick when they drafted him because, like you said, he was like the guy at LSU. Like he had the big name, the bright lights. He was the best receiver in college football going into it. I like Thornton just due to his speed. if he can stay healthy, I think he can have a big year. But if I did have to pick one, I'll just go with Booty, just because of like you said, he could pop off. He's quick. He's very talented, and he can bring a lot to this offense. And again, Thornton's just a huge question mark, and we don't know what we're going to get with him yet. I'm saying with Booty, but I'll take my risk with Booty.
I just feel like with Booty, it's one of the reasons why he fell off. Of course, he had injuries too, but I feel like it was more behavior stuff that kind of derailed him at LSU versus with Tyquan Thornton. It's not behavior things. It's just he can't stay healthy, and then when he's been on the field, he just hasn't really found a place in this offense. I was really hoping with Bill O'Brien that would change, but you've been at training camp. I've been at training camp. I wasn't impressed with what I saw with him from what we did get to see from him.
Yeah, it wasn't
he hasn't really had a great camp. But, who knows? I still think they're probably going to stick with 5. But if they go with 6, even if they go with 6, where does he stand on that depth chart? He's probably – obviously Parker, Smith-Schuster, and Bourne are going to be ahead of him. I think Douglas will probably – so he's coming in probably wide receiver 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough to get an opportunity to show what he can do. So he's got an uphill battle ahead of him for sure. Kind of similar to this offensive line unit, which is a good segue because – I think that was one of the biggest takeaways of last night was that we have a real – it's been there all preseason, but especially after last night. We have a real problem here with this offensive line. What did you see from the O-line last night? Are you concerned? Is it time to break the glass already before the season even starts?
I don't want to break it yet because I'm looking at the snap count right now. Trent Brown only got 11 snaps. Dave Andrews only got 11. I know Owenu hasn't played. Riley Reef, he had I just lost it. He had 31 snaps. This isn't I think the offensive line you're seeing right now isn't the offensive line you're going to see week 1. Hopefully Owenu is healthy. You're going to have Cole Strange. You're going to have Trent Brown. You're going to have Andrews. I think the biggest question for me is, are you going to go with Riley Reef, Connor McDermott? What are you going to do on the right-hand side? I think that's, to me, the biggest issue. I think once week 1 happens and you have all the starters playing, you're going to be fine, but you got to figure out the right tackle position. I think Riley Reef, and I know you kind of paid him, but he wasn't that good last year. Connor McDermott, it's just I really wish they didn't address that in the offseason. And that was a huge issue last year too. And Matt got hit pretty hard last night. So if they want a big year out of Stevenson, a big year out of Zeke, and a big year out of Mac, they got to protect him.
Yeah, I think that was the thing because last night, I know it's preseason, and obviously they're not giving us everything. Bill O'Brien, obviously, none of the plays we're seeing, none of the things we're seeing is real in terms of real plays, real game situation. It's preseason, so you can only take what you see with a grain of salt. But beyond the offensive line issues, I thought Mac Jones looked really well last night. I thought he looked a lot more poised than he did last year. He made some good throws. I like what they were doing with some of the RPO stuff. The offense, when Mac was on the field and when he wasn't completely under pressure, it actually looked good. But that's the thing is that there were so many moments last night where he just was forced to operate in this horribly protected pocket. And I think that's I tweeted it out on the Guy Boston Twitter yesterday was this offense, truthfully, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, has the potential to be really, really good. The problem is that they finally upgraded the weapons. They have, obviously they get Gesicki, they upgrade at wide receiver, they bring in Zeke. We'll talk about that in a bit too. So now they have the offense around Mac that he needs to succeed. He finally has the right play caller. We don't have that disastrous Patricia Judge monster we had last year. It felt like all the pieces are falling into place, except now the offensive line is deteriorating. That's due to age, trading Shaq Mason away, not finding replacements for the guys, losing guys like Isaiah Wynn and not properly replacing them. It feels like we have what it takes to be a great offense, but now the offensive line has become a really big issue. Mm-hmm. And I have a bad feeling that it could hold us back if it's not addressed. Again, like you said, there are some health things. This isn't their 100% healthy offensive line, but in the National Football League, in the sport of football, it's hard to imagine that this offensive line unit will stay healthy for all 17 games all year round. And it just makes you look at this and say, what happens if Trent Brown goes down at some point, which is realistic. I mean, he's had injury history in the past. What happens if we lose David Andrews again? What happens if Onwenu or Cole Strange gets hurt? How are we going? It doesn't look like we have the depth to handle that. And if that happens, what does this offense look like? So that's one of my big fears for this Patriots team right now, is that I think wide receiver, although I don't think we're great at wide receiver, we're improved. Everywhere on offense, I think we got better, except offensive line. And unfortunately, in football, the offensive line is tied to everything. I mean, you can't have a successful passing game or a successful running game without a decent offensive line. Everything starts in the trenches. And right now, the trenches are not looking good for New England, but it's only preseason. We don't have the full picture yet, so we can't overreact just yet, like you said, but it's a little alarming. My hand is closed. It'll be ready to break that glass pretty early on if we see Mac under pressure like he was last night. Anything else? Any other big takeaways from that Packers game last night that you wanted to bring up?
I just want to say that I think Jalen Mills is doing very well in the safety position. I mean, I know it's funny when you put a player in their true position, how well they can do. I just think he's like, when he played against Houston, even yesterday, he's played very well filling that Devin McCourty hole. So I think that has that's made me happy seeing him do well in that position. I really hope that everything kind of works out with Jack Jones, because I just think him and Gonzalez can be a really good 1-2 at cornerback. I've been kind of really hoping that, it all works out with him and he can play, because if he can't play, they have another issue at the cornerback position too, because I don't think Jonathan Jones, I don't think he can be a cornerback number 2. I think he's perfect in the slot and going up against a slot receiver. But when he has to go up against like a number 1 or number 2, he has struggled. So I think those two things I have been noticing.
Yeah, the potential was there for Jack Jones. The biggest thing with him is it's the behavior things.
Yeah.
When he's actually on the field and allowed to play football, he is spectacular. But you almost get the feeling of like, how much longer is Bill going to put up with this? Because he doesn't put up with things like this, and that's his history. And he's got a record on him already. I mean, obviously, he was in the doghouse at the end of last year. Then you have the whole plane incident in early in the offseason, and you've got some behavior issues in practice and stuff, and fights breaking. He's got a lot on his record already, and it makes me nervous because he is a great player, and if he gets cut by us, he's going to go somewhere else and succeed, and it hurts to see that. I really hope that he'll get his act together because, like you said, he could be a really special player. The only other play I kind of wanted to bring up was, I know it's not the sexy thing to talk about is special teams, but Bryce Behringer, I think we found our punter. Last season was disastrous with special teams, which is, I remember watching last year, and obviously a lot of Patriot haters will say, oh, the dynasty's dead, and the Patriots are all done, and that era's over. And I would always tell them, not yet, not yet. But then last season, when you saw those things happen, all the kick return, punt return touchdowns, all the errors on special teams, that was the first time where me personally, I was like, maybe people are right. Maybe this is it. Maybe maybe he lost his fastball. Maybe he's not what he was, because these are things that for 20 years we never saw happen in New England. And last year, I mean, not to shit on the Cleveland Browns, but we looked like the Cleveland Browns, like with some of the mistakes we were making. Like, it felt like we were a mediocre team. We were a laughingstock in a lot of ways last year. And one of the big things was punter. I mean, our punter position was a nightmare last year. Bryce Behringer's got potential. He showed some stuff yesterday. I think he's our punter, and I think he could help fix some of those special teams issues that we had last season.
I completely agree. I just hope they don't do what they did with Jake Bailey, and then after the first year, give him a contract extension. Just kind of maybe wait it out, see what happens.
And then I guess the only other thing, like, what do you think about the kicker sitting on special teams? What do you think about the kicker situation? Because obviously, as of right now, Chad Ryland and Nick Folk are both still on the roster. They're definitely not going to keep both of them. You got to imagine they're going to cut Folk, right? I mean, they drafted Chad Ryland, using a draft pick on a guy. You assume they're going to probably hold on to him, but Do you think anything changed? Do you think they keep both, or do you think that Folk somehow stays? I think his days are numbered.
I agree, and I like Nick Folk a lot. So seeing him get cut kind of suck. I can see them keeping two kickers as well. As kind of weird as it sounds, I could see them maybe doing like Folk gets anything like under the 30-yard range, and then Riley gets anything above the 30-yard range. But that would, I mean, it would kind of be dumb to do that. I think Chad Ryland will be the kicker. It would really suck to see them cut Nick Folk.
He has become kind of a fan favorite, but yeah, come to the Foxborough Faithful podcast. We actually talk about special teams and kickers here. We show love to special teams players. All right, but moving forward, there was some big news that launched our week. Obviously, if you're not living under a rock, you know, but if you are, New England Patriots signed a little running back known as Ezekiel Elliot this past week. It's a move that sent shockwaves across New England. I know in our Guy Boston staff, we were all excited. In my friend groups, we were going crazy. What was your reaction when we landed Zeke?
So I was at the gym. I was working on my brother, and I was just checking my phone to skip the song, and then I just get a notification that says Ezekiel Elliott planning on signing a 1 year with the Patriots. And we're at two totally opposite ends of the gym. And I shit you not, I literally sprinted, like full on, like sprint. Ran up to him, was like, we just got Zeke. Didn't even get to finish my workout. Came right home. Called my fiance on the way home, like, we just signed Zeke. She didn't care. As soon as I got home, I was very happy with it. I knew they weren't going to get Dalvin Cook from the jump. I think he wanted that number one role. I think he wanted to be their starting running back. And I think for the Jets, I think he's going to be, because I don't think Breece Hall is 100% healthy. But with Zeke, I think it's a very fair contract. I think he is going to play a lot more than what people think. I don't think they were very comfortable going into the season with Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong. I know they have Tom Montgomery, but he's always hurt.
Never healthy.
But
healthy.
He's never healthy. I think they wanted to see what Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong can do in their first preseason game, and they didn't do anything. And that's when I think they were like, all right, we got to get Zeke. Because I think he came for a visit then in July. And then it was kind of a couple of weeks where you didn't hear anything. So I'm like, all right, maybe they want to wait and to give the preseason, see what those two guys can do. And they didn't do anything. They were like, all right, now we have to sign Zeke.
Yeah, there was definitely a sense of urgency after that first preseason game. You felt it across everywhere. Everyone was like, we need something. This is not going to work.
I mean, it wasn't going to work. And I think with Zeke, too, he brings a lot to the table. He could be a mentor to I think they're going to cut Kevin Harris and they'll keep Pierre Strong. But he can be a mentor to both of them. And I think he's a great blocker, which they might need. But it takes the load off of Stevenson tremendously. I think if this offensive line can stay healthy and can block, I think they both can rush for over 500 yards each. I mean, I can just see them both carrying a ton of the workload. I thought Zeke would only be a third down and a goal line back. I would not be surprised if you see him on second down, maybe even first down. It was a great signing. I know going into the year, everyone wanted Hopkins. They need a wide receiver. I think as much as they needed a wide receiver, I think they needed a running back just as badly. So, because if you would have signed Hopkins, right now, if Booty was popping off, if Douglas was popping off, what would you have done? You would have 7 wide receivers and you would have cut one of them. I mean, I would love to have Hopkins, don't get me wrong, but with Zeke, I was very happy with it. I was the most excited I had been with the signing since probably even Judon. So I'm very happy to see them bring someone in for a workout, wait it out, get the money was perfect, a 1-year deal, and who knows, maybe they'll even resign him. I mean, who knows?
Well, I think that's the thing. And it's like, so my reaction, I didn't believe it at first because for some reason I wasn't getting any notifications, but in my friend's group chat, he sent a GIF of Ezekiel Elliot. And immediately I knew, I mean, obviously out of context, why would you send that? I knew that we had gotten him, but I'm looking around because I don't see it on ESPN. I don't see it on Bleacher Report. I don't see it on anywhere. And so I'm freaking out. Like, where did he get this information? Is he trolling? What's going on? And then it starts rolling in, and I'm like, it's a celebration across New England, truthfully, that we got him. And of course, you've got people already chiming because it's the Patriots. People chiming in. He's washed. He's older. Especially a lot of Cowboy fans who are a little salty about how his Cowboy tenure ended, including one of my friends, Matt, who had a lot of negative things to say when we signed him, who's a Cowboys fan. I think it's a great signing. He's only 28 years old, so he's still technically in the prime of his career. I just think it's perfect for a number of reasons. Number one, he is sort of a replica of Ramondre Stevenson. They're similar players in a lot of ways. And so I do think it's a good thing to sort of have a copy of Stevenson. Like, when Stevenson gets tired, or let's say, God forbid, something happens to him, you have Zeke, who you're not going to have to change your offense around to have him out there. I think that's one of the things with Dalvin Cook is beyond the fact that he wanted to be a number one running back, if we had signed him, his run style is different from Stevenson and different from what the Patriots typically look at for running backs. And so that's not the case with Zeke. Zeke I think he's a typical Bill Belichick, New England Patriot running back. And so I do think that he fits this offense well. I don't think there's going to be a lot of a learning curve here. Obviously, the blocking, especially with our issues right now in offensive line, the blocking could end up being a huge added bonus. You see they're kind of using him in the passing game in practice a little bit. People, this whole notion that he's washed, of course, no, he's not what he was in 2016 or 2017. He's not Pro Bowl Zeke anymore. But do people not realize that he rushed for over 800 yards last season and had 12 rushing touchdowns while sharing reps with another running back? Like that, I don't understand everyone who's like, he's washed. Like, he was sharing snaps, sharing reps with Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard was the running back one, and yet Zeke still finished with over 800 yards and 12 touchdowns.
If that's washed, I'll take it.
That's what I mean. Like, everyone's like, oh, he's washed. Like, honestly, if last season was washed, I will take that 10 times over. If he comes out here and gives us 600 yards and 8 touchdowns, I think it's a good signing. It's just crazy to me, everyone who's like, oh, he's not prime Zeke. He's not, 1,200 plus rushing yards Zeke anymore. I don't think we're going to get that. But to say that he has no value or that he doesn't bring anything to the table is just crazy. And there's not many people who have seen that. It's mostly, like I said, those Cowboy fans who are a little salty that he's not there anymore, salty how it all went down. But I think he's a perfect fit. I think that especially come late in the season, I think Stevenson last year, you could kind of see it. Damian Harris obviously struggled through injuries consistently. And with the passing struggles, they leaned on him a lot last year. And towards the end of the season, especially that Buffalo game, I think he just kind of looked worn down and tired. And I think that's a big thing. I think they're trying to prevent that because, like you said, had they not signed him, you can't rely. Pierre Strong, although I still think he has potential, I don't think he's going to be able to carry the load or take that load off of Ramondre's back like Zeke can. And so what would have happened was, especially if the passing game were to struggle again, Ramondre Stevenson would turn into Derrick Henry in the sense of we'd be giving him 30-plus touches a game across passing and running. And then come week 14, 15, 16, 17, he's just worn down by that point.
Yeah.
So I do think Zeke, it'll take some of the load off of him. It'll give Stevenson more rest. I think he's a great back for goal line situations, which we were like the worst red zone offense in football last year. So having Zeke should also help in that area. So I think it's a great signing. Also, beyond all that, he's just an electric person. Like his personality, his image, he's an icon, really. And I just feel like Patriots fans I think they already do love him. I already ordered my Ezekiel Elliot jersey. It should be.
Did you really?
Soon. Oh yeah. It was so funny because I was at Patriots training camp with my best friend. And, we have a jersey addiction. We buy jerseys every year. And so I was like, this year, I just bought a new car. I don't think I can go crazy on jerseys this year. I might pick one. And we both kind of looked like, who would it be? And we're talking, because I have a Junon. I have so many. We were kind of discussing who would we get if we buy one. And we both looked at each other and like, if we sign Zeke, because this was a couple weeks before, if we sign Zeke, without a doubt, that has to be the jersey we get. And so the minute he signed, we text each other like, "Did you put the order in?" He's like, "Yep, already did." So like that day we were already going on like, "Can we order the jersey yet?" Like, yeah, it's already in the mail. It's already in transit. I've always been a fan. I've always been a fan of his personality, of his play style. I think he's a great addition. I think you couldn't go wrong. And like you said, the contract, 1 year, $6 million, $3 million guaranteed.
Yeah, it's nothing.
You can't really go wrong with that.
No.
Not for a running back of his. Like I said, 800 yards and 12 touchdowns last season. I mean, you can't really get much better than that.
No.
But yeah, I'm really excited for Zeke. I think he'll definitely boost this offense up, which brings us into our last topic of the show. I've seen a lot of people talking about this on Twitter, between Boston fan accounts, between just sports accounts in general. After the Ezekiel Elliot signing, where do we rank the Patriots offense in terms of NFL offenses? Because there's a lot of people asking the question, do the Patriots have a top 10 offense now with Ezekiel Elliott now joining, with all the moves they made this offseason, with Bill O'Brien in-house? Do the Patriots have a top 10 offense in the NFL? I'll let you start off with that. Do you think this is a top 10 offense, or has the potential to be a top 10 offense this year?
I think it certainly has the potential. I think right now I will say no, but I think at the end of the year, could they? I'll say yeah. I just really want to see how the offensive line does. And I am as big of a Matt guy as anyone. I have defended him through everything. I think this is a big year for him too. And I think if he can go back to the Mac he was his rookie year, I think they can be. I mean, his rookie year, at one point they had a 7-game winning streak. They were the number 1 team in the AFC going into their bye week. They looked really dominant on offense. And that was with a real offensive coordinator running real offensive plays and just doing real offensive shit. Last year, it's just with him getting hurt, with Patricia calling the plays, all the zappy shit. I think a lot of it, and they were also a game out for making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Through everything that happened, all the shit that happened, they were still a game out. You beat Buffalo, you make the playoffs. You beat Chicago, you make the playoffs, so on and so forth. They were a game out. I think they can have a top 10 offense. Like, it just, Clem has his hands full with the offensive line. I think O'Brien will do just fine with the offense. They have the talent. Juju is talented. Gesicki's talented. Zeke's talented. They have the pieces there. They just got to utilize them. I fully believe they'll make the playoffs, and I fully believe week 17, they can be a top 10 offense.
Yeah, it's funny when you bring up the Mac thing, because people. I don't want to just act like I'm crying like, oh, everyone hates the Patriots, but it really is funny, like sort of the revisionist history people have when it comes to New England. Like, people, and it happens. I mean, when you look at any dynasty, any great sports franchise, you have your doubters, but people just kind of discredit, like they kind of forget, or they choose to forget, I should say, Mac's rookie year, because people forget, like, he was better than Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he was far and away, without a doubt, the best quarterback in that class for that season. Obviously, now Trevor Lawrence, I think, has surpassed him. But at the time, he was far and away the best rookie. And even today, I mean, I would only take Lawrence over him right now, truthfully. I mean, I know Justin Fields had a solid year last year, but I think it's Trevor Lawrence was 1 and Mac at 2, truthfully, in that class as of right now. And, his rookie year, like you said, he had a great rookie season. His completion percentage was like historically high. It was like 68, 67%.
Yeah.
They made the playoffs, and that's without saying yes, they had Josh McDaniels, and so they had a competent play caller, but they didn't have an elite offense that year. They had a solid offensive line. They had Stevenson and they had Harris, but they didn't have great receivers. That receiving core was just as bad as it was last year. Actually, it was worse than last year's, because last year's, at least they had Devontae Parker.
Yeah, we can kill Harry.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. The year before, you had Aguilar, Bourne was better that year, but you had N'Keal Harry. It was a mess. And Jonnu Smith, you had that whole thing going on. Like,
yeah.
Their offense was not great on paper, the talent around him, and yet he still succeeded and they still made the playoffs. So when people say, oh, Mac's not the guy or he can't be the guy and oh, the Patriots can't make the play, it's like at our last year was as low as you can possibly go, I think, on offense. Like I don't think it can get much worse than that. And we won 8 games. And we're a game out of the playoffs. Even you go back to the Cam Newton year, we were 7-9. You know, we're a goal line touchdown against Seattle and one change in the Chiefs game. If Cam Newton doesn't get hurt, a couple, 1 or 2 changes were in the playoffs that year too, and that offense wasn't that special either. So I mean,
not even close.
The people who are sitting here like, oh, New England, they can't. Like, this is the best offense we have had. I would go as far back as 2018. I mean, even that last Brady year in 2019, that offense wasn't.
Yeah, that offense, no, it was nothing.
Wasn't good either.
No.
I would say this is the best offensive group we've had since 2018, since that last Super Bowl win against the Rams, truthfully. Do I think they have – like, I agree with you. I don't think this is a top 10 offense right now. I think if you sit down – so it was funny. The reason I brought this topic up was because there were so many people saying this, asking this question, and a lot of people were saying yes, and I love it, and I'm a Patriots fan. I'll ride or die with my team. But if you really sit down and you start writing down the offenses, like I can name 7 or 8 in the AFC that I think are better than us. You know what I mean? Like if you start, Bills, Bengals, Chiefs, you go to the NFC, Eagles. You can make a pretty large list of teams. There's some obviously debate to be had for some of them, like, Baltimore, New England, like who has the better offense. I think it's a lot closer than people think, but that's up for debate. So anyways, I don't think they're top 10 right now, but I agree with you. I think if the offensive line can get their shit together, if they can hold strong with Bill O'Brien, who also gets kind of a bad rap, even though the fact, like, he had a pretty successful run as the head coach. I think as a GM, he kind of failed in Houston. But as a coach, I mean, he coached some pretty prolific offenses. And, of course, if you go to his time at Alabama, I mean, he's a great offensive play caller. I don't think that can be debated.
Oh, yeah.
And so you bring him in with this offense. I truly do think as long as the offensive line holds, we could be talking about potentially a top 10 offense. I don't think it's an offense that's going to be in the same class as the Chiefs or the Bengals or the Bills. At the end of the day, as much as I love Mac, he is limited in compared to he does not have the athleticism that those guys have. So I don't think we'll ever be in that higher echelon, I should say, of offenses. But this team, you're 10, 9, 8, that zone, we could definitely be there 100% by the end of the season if things go well. The pieces are there. They're absolutely there. I mean, Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki, with Bill O'Brien coaching them, I mean, Mike Gesicki had a quote, and it's so funny. I don't realize it. I don't think he realized what he said about. I don't know if you saw the Aaron Hernandez quote.
Yes, I did. Yes, I was like, oh, that's pretty tasteful.
I was like, yeah, he's like some of the greats that walked through these halls, like Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, and I was like, oh, that's. I mean, yeah, he was a great player, but that doesn't feel right, knowing what we know. But it's true. I mean, Bill O'Brien with those 2 tight end sets, what he was able to do with those early in the 2010s with Gesicki and Hunter Henry with those. I mean, there's some serious potential here for a stellar offense. And with the defense that we have, this team could make some serious noise. Like I said, the offensive line, I think, is the biggest thing that could hold them back. But this offense, on paper at least, has the potential to have a crazy, crazy season. But guys, that is it for our first episode here. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, make sure to subscribe. You can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, TikTok, everything. Our socials will all be down below in the description. Make sure you subscribe. Like I said, we'll be here all season long. Patriots post-game live. Jake's always at Gillette Stadium, so he'll give us some content from games. Make sure you're following him on all his socials as well. Jake, it's funny, people don't know it, but we really haven't had too many interactions prior to this. I think this is a great first episode. I can't wait to do this show with you. And thank you for accepting the invitation to run this show with me.
Thank you for sending it out, man. I cannot wait. I'm very, very excited.
All right, guys, you'll see us next week. Until then, enjoy.